Hello and welcome to the second session introducing the IB Psychology course. In the first session, you were introduced to psychology and what you're going to learn about in the IB Psychology course. You were also introduced to the differences between standard level and higher level. This session will provide a more detailed overview of the IB Psychology course content. In the first session, you were introduced to the basic concepts and material in the IB Psychology course, such as research methods and ethical considerations, the three approaches to understanding behavior, and the options, which are various fields of applied psychology. In this session, we will take a more detailed look at each of those. To introduce you to various research methods in the IB Psychology course, please complete the following task. Imagine psychologists wanted to study memory. What could they ask people to do to study their memory? Pause the video and continue watching when you complete the task. Psychologists could study memory in many ways. For example, they could ask people to recall a list of words, and the psychologist could count how many words they got correct. Alternatively, psychologists could count how many tries a person requires to recall a poem without any errors. Psychologists investigating memory in one of these ways would collect quantitative data. Quantitative data are numbers. They express the quantity of something. Psychologists could also ask people to describe what they do when they need to memorize some information, or they could ask them about kinds of information they find difficult to memorize. Psychologists who investigate memory in such ways would collect qualitative data. Qualitative data are data in words, which express the quality of something, meaning what it is like. Depending on the aim of their study, psychologists will use different research methods to collect qualitative or quantitative data. Surveys, correlational studies, and experiments are research methods based on quantitative data, which you are going to learn about in the IB Psychology course. On the other hand, naturalistic observations, various types of interviews, and case studies are research methods based on qualitative data you will learn about in the IB Psychology course. To understand some issues which psychologists need to consider when they are planning their studies, please complete the following task. Imagine psychologists wanted to study people's attitudes toward vaccination. Answer the following two questions. First, in the first session you learned that psychologists are not allowed to harm their participants. What do you think are some other ethical considerations they need to respect? Second, in what ways could psychologists find participants for such a study? Why does it matter how they choose participants? Pause the video and continue watching when you complete the task. Ethical considerations are crucial to psychologists, which is why you're going to learn about them and the ways in which psychologists can respect them. For example, you're going to learn about informed consent, anonymity or confidentiality, and the possibility of withdrawal. You're also going to learn about debriefing and the extent to which psychologists are allowed to deceive participants in their studies. Psychologists can find participants in many ways. For example, they could ask people waiting at a tram station, advertise their study online, or select participants and train them from a list. How psychologists choose participants for a study is very important, because their ability to draw conclusions from the study depends on it. In the IB Psychology course, you will learn about various sampling techniques, such as convenience, volunteer, random, purposive, and snowball sampling. In the IB Psychology course, you are going to learn about various other issues which psychologists need to consider while designing and conducting their studies. In addition to ethical considerations and sampling techniques, you will learn about different types of variables and hypotheses, as well as different experimental designs. You will also develop skills necessary for evaluating research in terms of bias, credibility, and validity. Finally, you are going to learn about drawing conclusions from psychological studies in terms of correlation and causation, as well as generalization and transferability. In this session, you're going to learn more about what the three approaches to understanding behavior are. What do you remember about them from the first session? Pause the video and continue watching when you complete the task. The biological approach studies brain structure and function, neurotransmitters, hormones, heredity, and evolution. The cognitive approach investigates memory, thinking, decision-making, and emotions. Finally, the sociocultural approach studies the influence of groups and culture, as well as learning by observing others. We'll now look at each of these approaches in some more depth. Each of the three approaches consists of 3 topics, plus a higher level extension. Each topic consists of several content points. Paper 1 exam questions refer to this topic and content terms. Topics in the biological approach include the relationship between the brain and behavior, hormones and pheromones and their effects on behavior, and genetics and behavior. Only higher level students learn about animal research. Topics in the cognitive approach include cognitive processing, reliability of cognitive processes, and emotion and cognition. Only higher level students learn about the influence of digital technology on behavior. Topics in the socio-cultural approach include the individual and the group, cultural origins of behavior and cognition, and cultural influences on individual behavior. Only higher level students learn about the influence of globalization on behavior. We are going to conclude this session by taking a more detailed look at the options you can learn about in the IB Psychology course. What do you remember about them from the first session? Pause the video and continue watching when you complete the task. The 4 options in the IB Psychology course are abnormal psychology, developmental psychology, health psychology, and psychology of human relationships. We'll now take a more detailed look at each of them. Each of the 4 options consists of 3 topics. Each topic consists of several content points. Paper 2 exam questions refer to this topic and content terms. Topics in the abnormal psychology option include factors influencing diagnosis, etiology of abnormal psychology, and treatment of disorders. Topics in the developmental psychology option include influences on cognitive and social development, developing an identity, and developing as a learner. Topics in the health psychology option include determinants of health, health problems, and promoting health. Finally, topics in the psychology of human relationships option include personal relationships, group dynamics, and social responsibility. We have reached the end of this session, which provided some more details about the IB Psychology course content. The next session will deal with assessment in the IB Psychology course.